Welcome to our executive interview series at the 2025 Zero Trust Summit here at the Spy Museum, sponsored by CyberScoop. I'm Wyatt Cash, and we're here with Matt Stern, the Chief Security Officer at Hypori. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great being here.
First, I'd like to ask, how would you characterize the extent to which most government agencies are currently achieving real-time visibility of users and devices on government networks? And what do you see as still needing to happen?
Sure. So I have a little bit of background and experience with this. I was the program manager for a capability called Einstein in the National Cyber Protection System when I was the program director there for the U.S. CERT at the time. This was before CISA. And so you're talking about, the breadth of this problem is very, very large. 2 million plus users, 250 agencies, 7,000 access points. It's a big issue. And I think identity management is something that the government has gotten down pretty well. I mean, and so identity and access management work pretty well in the government and across the board, whether you're in the DoD with PKI, the CAT cards, or other mechanisms. So I think we've got that one pretty well. The challenge becomes things like non-personal entities, so service accounts and other things that we're not really. The identity and access management credentials are really hard to get after, and how do we develop the policies and the capabilities to go after and manage those types of identities? And then you have the scale problem, because this is a huge problem, and you also have funding, because not every agency is alike. You have some agencies that have the resources and the budget to spend on different capabilities to get after these problems, and you have others that are they don't. And so, unlike the DoD that has DISA and they have centralized control, each agency is kind of its own service provider. And so they have to struggle with, how do we contend with this? What budget do I have? And so I think one of the biggest challenges in this cornerstone, and because it really is a cornerstone of capabilities, is funding across the board, leveling the playing field, and ensuring that they can get these capabilities. Then the another aspect of it is actually the data itself. So the goal of access control, or getting the identities to understand how they get into the environment, becomes a very tricky subject when you start talking about the data elements. So if we're protecting CUI for the government, and the government has to access that data, how do we ensure that the right data is going to the right people and it doesn't leave the environment? From our perspective at Hypori, one of the things that we bring to the table is, well, at least the device, from a zero trust point of view, and from this point of view, the device doesn't matter. We take that out of the equation, and you're only accessing the data. And so any of the enterprise rules or capabilities that are in place to protect the data, you don't have to worry about it, coming back to the device or leaving your environment, as long as you have those capabilities in place to control identity and those things. So I think the spending, or the capabilities that need to be created, the capabilities that need to be leveraged are out there in some cases. But I think that still the challenge is those non-personal entities, and how do we contend with those, and then also how do you deal with data elements. And obviously, Hypori, we're really believe that we can solve some of that problem, but in a zero trust architecture, there's many components that you have to rely on, and it's the integration of all those things to come to that architecture.
And then briefly, where are you seeing signs that AI, or the dawning of 6G wireless communications and new cloud security based tools will actually help accelerate agencies' efforts to improve their zero trust practices?
Sure. I think AI becomes really fundamental in baselining the architecture, if you will. Gap analysis, those kind of things. I think AI can do great things where you're not necessarily asking it to think about some anomalies. You're actually asking it to look at are these components of these capabilities met or not. I think that's a great place for AI to play in that in the role of zero trust. I think the 6G, I know from our perspective as a company that uses, we're mobile technology, mobile security technology. So what we found is we were originally developed on 3G networks, and we work great there. We work even better on 4G and 5G. And 6G brings a lot more to the table inherently that we're looking forward to take advantage of those capabilities and some of the security features that 6G will bring to the table. But I think 6G is, we're just getting 5G. So what happens with 6G is going to be interesting. I think it's just too new to speculate yet on what really will be the significant enhancements. And lastly, obviously, shameless plug for us, Hypori, we're a security company. We protect, our goal is to protect access and protect the data on the back end, and to ensure that the way our architecture is set up, we absolutely can have full visibility on anybody doing anything inside of our architecture. That's an advantage. We also can have our virtual workspace, which is a virtual Android environment, is secured to the point where very difficult for an adversary to come in and try and break that security. And there's a lot of mechanisms in place to help us with that. Nothing's foolproof. I would never say that we're hack-proof or that we're incapable of being compromised on our back end, because that's foolhardy, and that's something nobody would ever say. But we have a lot of mechanisms in place to secure the data and protect it, and protect that whole idea of access control into the enterprise. So I think that we're a great security tool. I'm looking forward to see what happens and how AI is integrated into other security tools and what functionality it provides. I just don't, me being a security guy, I don't trust it yet. So I think we've got to learn a lot about how it can be manipulated, how it can be attacked in essence, before we put all of our faith in AI. ChatGPT is cool. And a lot of the other engines out there are a lot of fun to play with, but I don't know if I'd bet an enterprise on it today.
Well said. Well, Matt Stern, thank you so much for joining us here at the Zero Trust Summit.
Thank you very much for your time.